incredible revelation. Black woman CEO's seat stolen. Flight grounded, touching twist exposed. Aisha Carter stood at the gate, surrounded by buzzing passengers, her heart racing with a mixture of excitement and dread. Her tech startup was on the brink of a game-changing investment, one that could propel her and her team into the tech elite. Today was supposed to be the milestone that validated her vision. But as she stepped forward to board the plane, a sinking realization washed over her. "Your seat has been given away," the attendant said flatly, handing her a slip of paper that only served to amplify the irritation bubbling within her. Staring at the empty seat on her boarding pass, frustration simmered. Why was it always the women of color who faced unnecessary hurdles? Aisha felt the weight of the world on her shoulders, especially when navigating a space that so often dismissed her accomplishments. As she watched the last-minute passenger shrug into her seat, recognition cut through her resolve. It was Tom, a former colleague who personified the barriers she had fought against. Memories of his condescending remarks and dismissive laughter echoed in her mind, reopening old wounds. As the plane sat grounded due to a brewing storm outside, Aisha's annoyance flared into something more visceral. She wrestled with the decision to confront him. The words of her grandmother loomed in the background. "Remember, dignity is your greatest weapon." Aisha had spent years building her identity, shaking off the dismissals that came her way. Yet here was Tom, a reminder of her past pains and present struggles. The ground crew called out updates, but Aisha barely registered them, her mind racing through all the preparations she had made. She could feel anger tightening her muscles, yet her grandmother's voice shimmered softly in her heart, urging her to rise above the negativity. "Is this really how you want to respond?" Aisha thought. Bitterness swirled within her, casting shadows on the day she had imagined. Before she could pause, she found herself engaging Tom in angling words, each sentence a push-pull of irritation and resolve. "Funny seeing you here, Tom," she began, lifting her chin defiantly. His eyes darted, recognition lighting a flicker of embarrassment. "Honestly, I was surprised to see you as CEO," he retorted, thinly veiling disdain, as a crowd began to gather around them. Aisha felt her heartbeat quicken, energy vibrating around her like an electrical current. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Tension thickened the air around them, charged with the history they shared. Each word became a filament leading to buried emotions, both confronting their insecurities. Aisha noticed his facade cracking slightly. Behind the bravado lay insecurity she had never considered. They both possessed brilliance, once stifled by doubt and societal hurdles. A storm of realization hit her as Tom confessed an idea he'd shelved due to fear, something that could enhance their industry. The barriers between them felt less defined now, chaos of their pasts colliding in ways neither had anticipated. The realization that they could redefine their legacies together stirred something new within Aisha. Yet the internal struggle loomed large as the storm outside echoed their turmoil. Would she choose revenge or an unexpected collaboration? As their back and forth escalated, the flight attendant announced a further delay, leaving Aisha at a crossroads, a choice that could either lead to fleeting satisfaction or transformative potential. The uncertainty gripped her more fiercely than the storm raging outside. What direction would she take with the stakes so high? Aisha's mind raced as the storm outside intensified, mirroring the turbulent emotions roiling within her. As Tom's words hung in the air, she felt a shift. Her impulse for retaliation fought against a deeper instinct to forge something new. The long journey she had undertaken to prove her worth began to threaten her with a choice that could either empower her or ensnare her further in bitterness. "Your ideas are still valid, Tom," she said, the tremor in her voice betraying both vulnerability and strength. "You know the industry needs innovation, not just old grudges." His expression softened slightly. Perhaps he too felt the constraint of years spent in competition rather than collaboration. Aisha could see that the disdain he had shown in the past was now entangled with something else, a desire for redemption, perhaps even respect. She realized that she held the momentum in this conversation. "What if we stop fighting each other and start learning from one another?" Aisha proposed, curiosity sparking alongside the profound discomfort of vulnerability. It was uncharted territory that could lead to either connection or catastrophe. Tom paused, running a hand through his hair, contemplating her proposition. "And if this doesn't work? If we fail together, it'll end our careers. My reputation would be in pieces." Aisha felt an urge to shake him out of his trepidation. "But what if we succeed? What if we create something that changes everything? That's got to count for something, right?" Each word chiseled away the doubt clouding his expression. Suddenly, a loud clap of thunder jolted them both, diverting the crowd's attention outside. Aisha took a moment to breathe, centering herself. Was this the cusp of a pivotal moment, or was it another fleeting attempt at hope? Could she really trust Tom, or was she setting herself up for further disappointment? "You're right," he said finally, his voice steadier now. "I've let fear dictate my decisions for too long. Maybe it's time." Aisha sensed a profound transformation happening, not just for him, but for herself as well. Their past roles threatened to dissolve, revealing new possibilities that neither had dared to imagine. The tension of the flight became mere background noise, as they spent the next minutes sketching outlines for a collaborative project, threading their strengths into a tapestry of mutual ambition. Aisha could feel the walls of her own limitations begin to crumble and a dawn of creativity ignited. She too felt the burden of expectation beginning to lift. Just then, her phone buzzed insistently in her pocket, pulling her momentarily back into the present. It was a notification from her assistant. Emergency meeting with investors scheduled for today. Aisha's heart sank. The very meeting she'd canceled due to this flight was now pressing down on her like the storm outside. She turned to Tom, her mind racing. The moment of connection they had fought for felt perilous now, overshadowed by the financial stakes awaiting her. "What do I do?" she asked, her voice a mere whisper. Tom leaned in, a mix of urgency and determination reflecting in his eyes. "You don't just walk away from this, Aisha. Let's put our ideas into action. Together." The realization hit her. A partnership wasn't only about overcoming their mutual histories. It could also be a defining step toward an evolution neither had anticipated. As Aisha weighed this pivotal choice, a heart-stopping decision loomed on her horizon. Would she seize the moment to unite their efforts, or retreat into the familiar safety of competition and the fear of failure? The storm continued to rage, the world outside a chaotic spectacle as she pondered her next move. The weight of ambition rested heavily upon her shoulders. Could she truly rally her newfound alliance with Tom and face the investors head-on? Somewhere amidst the noise and potential, her heart echoed the truth. This wasn't merely about one step in her career. It was about redefining the narrative that had long confined her. Suddenly her phone buzzed again, this time vibrating with a sense of urgency, a video call request from her top investor. Instinctively, Aisha's breath caught. The moment of truth was fast approaching. The future of her company, her values, and her strength would all hinge on the choice she was about to make. Could she muster the courage to face what awaited her on the other end of that call? Would she risk it all for the chance to pioneer something unprecedented? Aisha took a deep breath, sensation altering between dread and hope as she steadied herself for the call. The choice before her loomed overwhelmingly. Should she step into the unknown with Tom or retreat to safer ground? As the video call icon glowed on her screen, she felt the weight of her decision intensifying. She glanced at Tom. His confidence radiated reassurance. "You've got this," he said, his voice a steady anchor in the storm of her thoughts. Aisha took a moment to gather herself. This wasn't just about confronting investors. It was an opportunity to redefine her role, to demonstrate her resolve beyond the confines of her past rivalries. With a shaky hand, she accepted the call, her heart pounding as she met the gaze of Paul, her top investor, a man who held a significant stake in both her company and her future. The screen flashed to life, revealing Paul's serious expression, making Aisha's stomach churn. "Aisha, I hope you're ready to discuss those projections," he said, his tone brusque and no nonsense. There was a flicker of concern in his eyes, likely due to the unexpected cancellation she had enacted. She could almost hear the ticking clock behind him, each tick echoing a reminder of how precarious her position was. "I am, Paul," Aisha replied, her voice firm, careful to mask the anxiety swirling inside. "And I believe I have exciting developments to share that could enhance our projected outcomes significantly." Paul raised an eyebrow, skepticism dancing behind his serious demeanor. "I'd like to hear them, but I hope they're more than just ideas." Tom hovered closely by Aisha's side, his presence bolstering her courage. She launched into a presentation of their revitalized project plan, reminding herself of the strengths embedded in their collaboration. Each word was infused with the relentless hope she felt, shaped by their recent brainstorming session as she shared how their combined experience could influence the market. As she spoke, an unexpected confidence surged. She didn't just present the data, she painted a vivid picture of innovation born out of collaboration, emphasizing the potential for breakthrough change. Aisha felt genuine excitement blending with a sense of purpose. The notion of transcending her previous limitations fueled her as she spoke. "That's a bold move, Aisha," Paul said, his expression shifting. "But how can you ensure success when you're still working through these uncertainties?" Aisha paused, grasping for the right words. The fear of retribution loomed. Yet, she had a choice. "Paul, I believe genuine collaboration can pave the way for unprecedented growth. My partnership with Tom has already sparked new ideas, ones that challenge the status quo. If we don't take risks, we'll always be stuck behind what's comfortable." The silence that followed her assertive declaration echoed the confidence she had felt while presenting it. Every second felt like an eternity as Paul processed her words. The veiled walls of skepticism softened for a brief moment, replaced by what seemed like genuine interest. "You're putting a lot on the line, but I respect your tenacity," he finally conceded. "I'll consider your proposal, but understand that if it fails, we all take the hit." Aisha nodded, a flicker of acknowledgement warming her spirit. In that moment she recognized the shift, not just in Paul's demeanor, but within herself. "I'm committed to making this work," she said, her voice unwavering. "Together with Tom, we can revive this vision." The call ended and Tom turned to her, his expression a mixture of respect and disbelief. "That was impressive. You really own that space," he said, admiration tinging his voice. Aisha felt a wave of exhilaration washing over her, a burgeoning realization dawning. This was more than just a presentation. It was about collective strength and evolution. And yet, lingering anxiety pulsed beneath the surface. Their collaboration would indeed bring them closer to transformation, but what would it truly entail? As doubts began to surface, the distant rumble of thunder echoed her internal tumult. Was this new partnership, this unexpected collaboration, a path to authentic innovation or a precarious venture on a tightrope of risk? The storm outside roared with renewed intensity, as if embodying the struggle within her. Aisha was on the brink of something extraordinary, yet the shadows of uncertainty loomed, cleverly disguising themselves as opportunities. As she stood there with Tom, they both shared an unspoken understanding. This was just the beginning. But as Aisha allowed her thoughts to wander, her phone buzzed once more, a new alert demanding her attention. It was a text from her assistant marked urgent. "News breaking. Rival company launched a similar project. Immediate action required." Aisha's heart raced at the looming threat. The moment to solidify her next step was fast approaching, and with it, the truth about their collaboration would soon come to light. Would they stand firm together against the rising tide of competition? Or would their nascent partnership falter under the pressure? The stakes had just escalated in a way she hadn't anticipated. Aisha's pulse quickened as the implications of her assistant's message sank in. The news of a rival company launching a similar project felt ominous, like dark clouds rolling in to obscure a previously hopeful horizon. The weight of the moment pressed down on her, a mix of urgency and determination coursing through her veins. "Tom, we need to talk," she said, her voice steady despite the whirlwind inside her mind. They retreated to a smaller conference room, the walls adorned with mottled designs and dim lighting, an oddly comforting space that nevertheless echoed the gravity of their situation. "What's the plan?" Tom asked, his brows knitted. The ease of their earlier conversation had vanished, replaced by a shared understanding of the stakes they faced. Aisha exhaled slowly, collecting her thoughts. "We can't ignore this. They're seizing the opportunity we were just discussing. If we're going to push forward, we have to act swiftly and decisively." "What if we reorient our approach?" Tom suggested, his analytical mind racing ahead. "Instead of sticking closely to our original projections, we could innovate even further. Let's highlight what sets us apart." His words sparked a flicker of inspiration within Aisha. They had always aimed to carve out a unique identity for their project, but now they needed to amplify that vision. "We can focus on customer experience and community-driven initiatives. If they've launched something similar, we need to illustrate why our approach is different and what actual value we bring to the table." Tom nodded, a fire igniting in his blue eyes. "Let's create a focused pitch that showcases our strengths. If we can present to Paul with a revised angle, profound market impact, cutting-edge innovation coupled with community engagement, we can reposition ourselves." But Aisha hesitated, feeling the weight of her responsibilities. It wasn't merely business. This was personal, a reflection of her growth and the progress she had made in overcoming past obstacles. What if Paul feels we're scrambling? There's a risk he could lose faith in our ability to deliver. Then we show him that this is an opportunity, not a setback, Tom urged. This is your chance to steer us toward not just survival, but success. Assert your leadership, Aisha. His encouragement resonated. As daunting as the situation was, it also represented the challenge she'd needed to embrace all along. Part of the emotional turmoil she faced stemmed from her self-doubt. Now, there was a new possibility, an opening to obscure potential by showcasing her strengths. Aisha felt the storm within her begin to settle. Determination solidified into resolve as she made the decision. "We need a strategy meeting. I want everyone involved, from marketing to logistics, to ensure we spin this in our favor. I won't let our vision of innovation fall between the cracks." Tom grinned, a rush of enthusiasm rippling through him. "That's the spirit. Let's gather the team." Moments later, as the meeting unfolded with Aisha outlining her direction, something profound began to awaken within her. A coherent vision and sense of purpose overshadowing her previous doubts. Each member's contributions intertwined, each suggestion building on the foundation she had laid. There was a dynamic energy in the air, an infectious commitment to pushing forward. But even amid the growing momentum, a whisper of unease tugged at her consciousness. In the back of her mind, lingering uncertainties clawed at her, a fierce reminder that competition would only intensify. Were they truly prepared to confront not only the external challenge but also the internal fractures of ambition and vulnerability within the team? As the meeting concluded, Aisha felt a bittersweet cocktail of hope and apprehension. They had charted a plan, yet the competitive skies continued to darken with each passing hour. She needed more than just an action plan. She needed allies who believed in this vision as deeply as she did. That night, as Aisha sat staring out at the city skyline, illuminated by countless lights, she realized she was on the cusp of not just reclaiming her place, but redefining it. The question remained, could she gather enough resolve and fortitude to lead the charge against the inevitable storm brewing on the horizon? A notification vibrated on her phone. It was a message from Paul, simply reading, "We need to meet, sooner rather than later." Aisha's breath hitched. The pivotal moment was looming, and she was left questioning whether she could truly hold the reins of the collaboration or if doubt would snuff out the resolve they had just kindled. With her heart racing, she sent a quick reply. "I'll see you tomorrow. Let's talk." The stakes were higher than ever, and tomorrow would reveal the true depth of her resolve and courage to navigate the storm ahead. The day dawned with a sense of urgency as Aisha prepared for her meeting with Paul. Morning light streamed through her apartment windows, illuminating her reflection in the glass. She could see the fortitude etched in her features, yet shadows of uncertainty still lingered beneath the surface. Today wasn't just another meeting. This was a defining moment for her leadership and vision. As she dressed in her tailored suit, Aisha took a moment to reflect on her journey. The challenges she had faced in her career thrived in her mind like a cast of characters, each one shaping her resilience and resolve. There had been nights spent obsessively revising plans, the pressure of deadlines looming like a specter overhead, and yet every struggle had fortified her, shaping her into the person she was today. This time she would channel that energy into her presentation. Arriving at the office, she felt the palpable tension in the air. Her team was buzzing with a mix of anxiety and expectancy. Knowing they too were counting on her pushed Aisha to find an inner calm. "We're not just competing," she reminded herself. "We're leading." The meeting space was filled with her colleagues, their faces a tapestry of hope and apprehension. Aisha stood before them, her heart racing, yet her voice steady as she began. "We are facing an unprecedented challenge, but I believe it can be transformed into our greatest opportunity. Let's distill our essence and present it boldly. Our commitment to the community and groundbreaking innovation can set us apart in a crowded market." She could see them responding, eyes lighting up as she spoke. Tom nodded encouragingly, and the flicker of renewed determination sparked something electric in the room. "Let's highlight our unique value proposition," she urged. "We need to craft a narrative that speaks not just to our product but to our purpose. It's about more than just market share. It's about impact." The energy shifted as ideas flowed freely. Colleagues chimed in, animated discussions crescendoing into a symphony of collaboration. Aisha encouraged them, drawing the best from each member, stimulating dialogue that built momentum. They dissected competitor weaknesses and identified what would make their project shine. Every exchanged thought sharpened the vision in her mind. But beneath the surface of this vibrant atmosphere lingered an undercurrent of something darker. Self-doubt dared to rise. Would Paul see the potential she saw? What if he dismissed their efforts as inadequate? Aisha wrestled with the notion that leaders must not just inspire, but also contend with their vulnerabilities. She secretly feared that her own hesitation might ignite a flame of distrust in her ability to lead. As the meeting neared its conclusion, Aisha felt the weight of this realization anchoring her spirit. No matter how convincing the pitch was, she had to reinforce her role as a leader who could navigate the storm. She had to show Paul not just her ideas, but the strength of her conviction. "Remember," she said, her voice firm but passionate, "it's our story. We're not just a business, we are shaping futures. And that's something we can't shy away from communicating boldly. Let's not just aim to survive, let's dominate our space." The room erupted in applause, a celebration of both their shared vision and Aisha's growing confidence. She stood amidst them, embraced by a wave of belief that surged through her. For the first time, she understood the power of vulnerability. It was not weakness, but authenticity that could forge stronger connections and build greater resolve. As her team departed, excitement hung thick in the air. Aisha remained, alone with her thoughts. She felt an exhilarating blend of anticipation and fear, knowing that soon she would face Paul, and the weight of this moment would land squarely on her shoulders. Outside the window, storm clouds began to gather, mirroring the tension within her. With a deep breath, she gathered herself, steeling for the confrontation ahead. She was no longer the hesitant contender, but a bold leader ready to claim her role in a competitive arena. Just as she turned to leave, her phone buzzed again. This time it was a headline flashing across her newsfeed: "Rival launch sparks industry turmoil." Aisha's heart raced. The implications behind it were multiplying, and she could sense that this battle was just beginning. Could she harness what lay ahead to propel them past the storm, or would the rival's launch prove overwhelming? The real test of her leadership loomed just around the corner, and it was going to require every ounce of courage she could muster. The atmosphere in the office shifted as Aisha approached Paul's office, her heart pounding with each purposeful step. She had prepared herself, rehearsing her pitch in her mind over and over, but the reality of facing Paul, the embodiment of her doubts and aspirations, felt electric. His reputation as a shrewd decision-maker loomed large, and she wondered if he would see the same potential in her vision. or if he would underestimate her yet again. As she paused outside his door, Aisha took a moment to inhale deeply, centering herself in the knowledge that she had overcome countless hurdles to arrive at this point. Those sleepless nights and relentless revisions had not gone unnoticed, and for once, she felt the weight of her past experience fortifying her resolve. Today would not only showcase her proposal, but would also reaffirm her right to lead. When she finally entered, Paul's office was a stark contrast to the buzzing energy of her earlier meeting. The walls were lined with accolades, a testament to his years of success. He looked up, surprise flickering across his face upon seeing her alone. The vacant chair on the other side of the desk reminded her of the power dynamics at play. This was her opportunity to shift the narrative. "Aisha, what brings you here?" His tone was cordial, but the underlying edge was unmistakable. This would be a dance of influence, with each of them poised to assert their relevance. "Paul, I wanted to discuss how the recent developments in our industry are imperative to frame our next steps," she began, deliberately asserting control over the conversation. She set her files on the desk, laying out her meticulously crafted plans, her fingers brushing against the documents as if they held the weight of her ambition. As she presented, Aisha felt the adrenaline coursing through her. She revealed insights into the competitor's weaknesses, smartly weaving in her team's strengths as a counterpoint. However, the uncertainty gnawed at her. Would he dismiss her with the flick of a hand, relegating her to the very doubts she had battled? Paul's expression remained unreadable as he listened intently, but she could sense a tension building as the conversation progressed. "Your team has potential, Aisha, but these ideas, are they truly groundbreaking? Or are we just responding to what's out there? This is a competitive market, and we need to be a step ahead." The challenge in his voice triggered something deep within her. Aisha's instincts urged her to retreat, to repeat familiar reassurances that would placate him, but instead, she dug in. "What defines groundbreaking is not simply innovation but unwavering dedication to our mission," she challenged, her voice steady. "We're not just followers but pioneers capable of reshaping expectations. This isn't merely about joining a race. It's about redefining the finish line itself." With every word, she felt the cracks forming in the armor of her self-doubt. The exchange shifted. Paul's brow furrowed, not out of dismissal but rather a growing intrigue. This was her moment of revelation. She could command the space when she operated from a place of authenticity rather than fear. As they continued to engage, the tension lessened, replaced by a dynamic exploration of ideas. She navigated questions with poise, drawing on references from her life experiences that reflected her understanding of resilience. Aisha could feel her confidence expanding with each passing moment, feeding off the mental gymnastics required to hold her ground. "I see you're passionate about this, and I respect that," Paul conceded at last. "But passion needs a strategy. You have my attention, so I urge you, show me how this translates into tangible results." His words hung in the air, pregnant with both challenge and opportunity. Aisha realized this was the turning point, not just for her proposal, but for her conception of herself as a leader. She was no longer trying to fit into a mold defined by others. She was chipping away at the very stone of expectation to carve her identity. "If I can show clear projections along with our narrative, and if we can refine that into a plan with definitive outcomes, would you consider championing this vision?" Aisha proposed, invigorated by the emerging possibilities. Paul nodded slowly, and the shred of skepticism that had shadowed their discussion melted under her determined gaze. They were on the cusp of something greater, a collaboration that could ignite a spark. As she left his office, adrenaline still surging through her veins, Aisha realized how far she had come. The clash of ideas not only tested her resolve, but ignited a clarity she had not expected. Out in the open air, she felt the storm clouds outside dissipate, their foreboding presence transforming into a catalyst for her ambition. But as she reached her desk, another notification caught her eye. Industry experts predict mass layoffs following rival launch. The potential impact on her team and vision loomed large, and the fierce competition threatened to overshadow her fleeting triumph. Aisha sensed that the battle for leadership was intensifying. Could she now not only solidify her vision, but protect her team from the chaos that threatened to ensue? The stakes had been raised, and Aisha steeled herself. It was time to innovate and adapt once more. The real test was unfolding, and victory was no longer a matter of choice. It was an absolute necessity. Aisha returned to her desk, the noise of the office swirling around her. But her mind was laser-focused on the notifications flooding her screen. Mass layoffs were an indelible mark of fear, setting in motion a cycle of uncertainty. Against the backdrop of recent discussions with Paul, this news felt like an unwelcome wave threatening to pull her under. The stakes she faced now encompassed more than just her vision. It was about protecting her team, the very lifeblood of her aspirations. Drawing in a deep breath, she pushed against the temptation to succumb to panic. Aisha began crafting a response strategy that could not only shield her team from fallout, but also bolster their standing in the organization. She pulled out a notepad, banishing distractions. Replaying her recent conversation with Paul, she recognized that the insights she had gleaned could be honed into an actionable plan that aligned with her vision, proactive and forward-thinking. First, she needed to demonstrate her commitment to innovation and strategic resilience, not just for herself, but for those who relied on her. Aisha contemplated the unique skills her team had to offer. They had repeatedly adapted in the face of challenges. Flexibility was their forte. Reaching for her phone, she summoned her team for an emergency brainstorming session. As they gathered around the conference room table, Aisha sensed a mix of anxiety and anticipation radiating from her colleagues. Their faces mirrored a collective worry about the looming layoffs, but also a fervent readiness to confront adversity. "I know we're facing uncertainty," Aisha began, steadying her voice. "But this is an opportunity for us to show our strength and resilience. We can build a proposal that not only highlights our ongoing projects but identifies new areas where we can lead the market." She felt a surge of determination as she outlined her vision. "We aren't just defenders in this game. We can be the innovators. Let's analyze market trends, capitalize on our competitors' weaknesses, and forecast our growth." Aisha could see the spark start to rekindle in her team's eyes as she spoke. They were no longer passive participants in a hostile environment. They were warriors armed with insight. The brainstorming session unfolded with palpable energy. Ideas flowed, ignited by Aisha's confidence. Innovating to counter the rising threats felt empowering. They divided the workload, assigning research tasks to leverage their joint expertise. Marketing insights, financial projections, creative pitches. The collaborative spirit showcased their shared resilience rather than an isolated battle. As the discussion transitioned to solutions, Aisha absorbed the perspectives around the table, feeling an emotional swell at how far they had come together. In this moment, she no longer felt the weight of the looming competition. Instead, she felt buoyed by the collective initiative and shared aspirations that surpassed individual fear. The energy in the room cracked like electricity, lighting the way for new strategies. They carved out a fresh narrative for themselves. Aisha could sense that they were constructing not just a plan, but a powerful defense against impending calamity. They would not only withstand the pressures around them, but emerge as pioneers in their own right. When the meeting concluded, Aisha gathered with her leads for a debrief. She encouraged them to share their thoughts. Open dialogue. This was new for her, inviting vulnerability into the leadership space. Their response was overwhelmingly supportive, and she found herself awash in gratitude for their input. It dawned on her that fostering this collaborative culture was as vital as any business strategy. Personal growth and team cohesion would create an unbreakable foundation. As she walked back to her office, her mind buzzed with ideas and visions, but a singular notion crystallized. She needed to prepare for her next confrontation with Paul. This was no longer just about laying out a proposal. It was about proving that she understood the heartbeat of her industry and her team as integral to its future. With determined strides, Aisha sat down at her laptop. In that moment, the gathering storm outside felt irrelevant. Opportunities were surfacing that would allow her to illustrate her leadership, not just within her team, but extending throughout the organization. Aisha's fingers danced across the keyboard, laying the groundwork for her next meeting. But as she fine-tuned her ideas, another notification came through. Insider leak reveals new rivals entering the market. With adrenaline coursing through her veins once more, the previous victory began to fade into the background. The true battle loomed ahead. A fresh wave of competition was on the horizon, and Aisha knew she needed to act decisively before it was too late. Would she be ready to elevate her proposal and shield her team from this new threat? The gauntlet had been thrown, and she was poised to respond. Aisha closed the notification with a swift flick of her wrist, her mind racing to process the implications of new competitors entering the market. A familiar knot tightened in her stomach, a blend of urgency and determination igniting her thoughts. The stakes had dramatically shifted again, presenting a challenge that extended beyond immediate layoffs. This was about survival and seizing opportunities amidst chaos. She quickly revisited her approach, mentally retracing the threads of her proposal to ensure it not only showcased her team's resilience, but also addressed the threat posed by this new competition. The rush of adrenaline mapped out a path, and she understood that fear could fuel insight. Empowering her team, she realized, meant investing in their ability to not just react, but also to anticipate. Tomorrow, during our pitch to Paul, we'll need a full analysis of their strategies, she murmured to herself, already envisioning the data points. She scribbled notes on her notepad, keeping one eye on the clock. This moment was pivotal, not just for the meeting, but for her own professional evolution. Aisha had always thrived in crisis, yet this time felt distinctly different. The pressure was mounting, and failure could mean losing her team. Aisha rose from her desk, stepping into an atmosphere thick with tension and camaraderie. She found her leads deliberating over the latest market insights in a nearby workspace. Greeting them, she adopted a fervor that almost surprised her. We need to shift our focus. Let's turn this threat into an advantage. We're going to analyze who these competitors are and how we can outperform them, she announced, her voice cutting through the ambient noise. The looks exchanged among her team shifted from uncertain to inspired. David, the analytics lead, was the first to contribute. I can compile data on their product launches and marketing strategies. We'll pinpoint gaps they might have overlooked. Energetic agreement filled the room as others chimed in. Sophia, from marketing, highlighted her recent campaign successes, pointing out ways to position their offerings to counteract new competitors. Each suggestion ignited Aisha's confidence further. Her team was solidifying around a shared resolve. Together they quickly outlined a plan. Each member would dig deeper into their assigned tasks, utilizing their strengths to compile insights that would resonate with Paul. Aisha felt the weight of their connection shifting. They were not just colleagues, but a unit united in purpose. The burgeoning solidarity promised to strengthen their resolve, and she saw the potential for growth, not only in their work, but in her leadership style as well. Returning to her desk later, she reflected on that emotional transformation. The necessity of vulnerability had borne fruit, revealing a path of authentic leadership. Her mind flickered back to Paul. What if she presented not only statistics and projections, but also conveyed the motivations and innovations driving her team? This was no longer just about defending their jobs, but about asserting their position as critical contributors to the company's future. Tentatively, she began drafting her presentation, weaving in personal anecdotes of her team's adaptability and creativity alongside hard data. The more she wrote, the clearer it became. She was not simply defending their space, but declaring that they were essential as the landscape evolved. Seizing another moment of courage, she reached out to her mentor, Samira, for a late-night call. As they exchanged insights, Samira encouraged Aisha to lead with conviction. Remember, this is your moment, Aisha. You've built a team that thrives on collective strength. Let them shine. Empowered, Aisha hung up feeling invigorated. Tomorrow's meeting wasn't just another obligation. It was a chance to redefine her narrative, to step into her role as a leader, and to champion her team against the encroaching tide of competitors. As she prepared for bed that night, Aisha couldn't shake a looming sense of urgency. She envisioned an empowered pitch, but felt the faint stirrings of doubt gnawing at her resolve. What if Paul rejected her newfound vision? Would it undermine all she had worked for? The weight of uncertainty settled over her. In the fading light, the challenge echoed louder. The time had come to crystallize her intent, to face both her fears and the rival threat head-on. Would she be ready to template a new narrative not only for her team but for herself? Aisha knew this wasn't merely about survival. It was about redefining what leadership could mean in a rapidly changing landscape. Aisha awoke that morning with a cocktail of anticipation and dread swirling within her. The room was bathed in a soft light, yet it felt heavy, as if the weight of the impending pitch pressed down on her from all sides. Pushing aside the covers, she swung her legs over the edge of the bed and took a deep breath, attempting to quell the fluttering in her stomach. She needed clarity. Her vision for the presentation had to ring true. In the kitchen, she poured herself a cup of coffee, letting the familiar scent coax her from the depths of doubt. The flavor was bold, sharp, a mirror to the resolve she needed. Aisha reviewed her notes again, the words she had painstakingly crafted now taking on an importance that felt transcendent. This was not just a proposal, it was a pivotal moment in her career. There was no room for complacency or fear. As she gathered her materials, Aisha felt a tension in her chest. The sense of looming rejection had taken hold, threatening to undermine her commitment to the vision she was desperate to articulate. Yet, paradoxically, that vulnerability could also be her strength. The prospect of rejection, while daunting, could also fuel a deeper connection with Paul if she dared to be honest about her aspirations and those of her team. Arriving at the office, she navigated through the energetic buzz of colleagues preparing for their own presentations, a sea of ambitious faces flashing past her. Each familiar smile reminded her of the weight they all carried together. She found solace in the huddled group of her leads, who were busy strategizing over their last-minute edits. Their camaraderie was a balm for her apprehension. They were all in this together. "Ready for today?" David asked, a hint of eagerness in his voice. "I'm getting there," Aisha replied, forcing a smile. "We need to be sharp, and I want us to reflect our innovation, not just the numbers." Sophia chimed in. "We've got your back, Aisha. Just remember, it's about showcasing the heart of our work and why it matters." Hearing their faith in her kindled a flicker of warmth in Aisha's chest. This wasn't just her presentation, it was theirs as well. Their shared struggles and victories had formed an unbreakable bond, one that she needed to highlight amid the strategies of the impending competition. As the clock ticked closer to the meeting, Aisha oscillated between excitement and anxiety, her thoughts racing. What if Paul didn't see the value in their adaptability? As she organized her materials, she caught sight of her reflection in a nearby glass, a woman on the brink of transformation. This was her opportunity to embody the leader she aspired to be, one who could bear witness to not just their present circumstances, but also their potential. The doors to the conference room opened, beckoning her inside. With a final deep breath, she entered, the air buzzing with a palpable energy. Paul sat at the head of the table, flanked by a panel of executives whose gazes seemed to pierce right through her. "Let's hear what you got," Paul stated, his tone neutral but revealing a trace of expectation. Aisha placed her notes before her, but instead of delivering a rote presentation, she leaned into her vulnerability, citing stories of her team's tenacity and creativity in the face of adversity. She felt the room's energy shift as she spoke from the heart, framing their situation not merely as a defensive strategy, but as a bold assertion of their significance amid challenges. As her narrative unfolded, a measure of hope took root in her mind. This moment felt different. She was not shrinking under pressure, she was rising to meet it. But just as her conviction began to solidify, the door opened again, and an unexpected figure walked in, one that could jeopardize everything she had just set in motion. "Sorry I'm late," the newcomer said, a confident smirk illuminating their face. Suddenly Aisha's heart sank as she recognized the very competitor that had thrown them into chaos. A confrontation was brewing, and she suddenly realized everything hung in the balance. Would this new twist derail her plans or reinforce her resolve? The stakes had never been higher. Aisha stood before the conference table, the mix of determination and dread gripping her tightly. The unexpected arrival of the competitor sent a ripple of tension coursing through the room. Recognition flickered across Paul's face as he glanced at Aisha, the understanding that this wasn't just about business anymore. It had turned into a high-stakes showdown. Collecting her thoughts, Aisha reminded herself of the journey that had led her here. This moment was not about her fear of failure. It was about demonstrating that she had transformed into a powerful leader, ready to confront challenges head-on. She could either falter in the shadow of the competitor or rise to solidify her place as a visionary in her industry. Thank you for joining us. I was just detailing how we plan to navigate the new market entries and position ourselves as leaders. Aisha began, her voice resonating with clarity and confidence. Paul's gaze shifted between Aisha and the competitor, who sat down with a casual smirk that indicated their confidence. Aisha could feel the pressure mounting, but she refused to yield. Instead, she leaned into the moment, drawing upon the insights from her recent brainstorming session with her team. Entering the market is one thing, disrupting it is another, she said, offering bold statistics from recent industry analytics that highlighted not just the competitors' successes, but also potential vulnerabilities that could be exploited. Aisha laid out her strategy clearly, using facts to back up her assertions. We're not just responding to competition, we're innovating our approach to demonstrate that we belong at the forefront of this industry. As Aisha spoke, she could see the shift in mood. Curiosity began to replace the initial tension, even from the competitor. This was her moment, and she seized it deftly, articulating not only her vision, but the inner workings and potential of her team. Every challenge we face now is an opportunity for us to define ourselves not just as a company, but as a community that drives the tech world forward. Paul's expression morphed into one of genuine interest, indicating that Aisha's vulnerability and authenticity had struck a chord. The competitor, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, leaned forward, narrowing their eyes, clearly threatened by Aisha's command over the meeting. Disrupting an industry requires more than talk and projections, the competitor interjected, their voice dripping with skepticism. It involves proven results and a track record. What do you actually have to show for your grand vision? Aisha felt her heart race, but she met their gaze unwaveringly. Not just plans, but a commitment to collaboration, she replied, recalling the fireside discussions she and Tom had shared on innovation. Every member of my team is dedicated not only to achieving our goals, but also to supporting one another. Collective strength is our greatest asset. Together, we have crafted a solutions-driven approach that reflects an awareness of our market's evolving demands. The competitor's bravado hesitated. Aisha's relationship with her team shone brightly against the stark reality of political maneuvering typically found in the industry. She realized that this moment validated her growth. Her earlier experiences with rejection and overshadowing had not only shaped her resilience, but transformed her into a collaborative leader, ready to redefine what success really meant. As the meeting progressed, Aisha felt the dynamic shift fully in her favor. Paul engaged more, asking probing questions that she deftly answered, seamlessly weaving in testimonials from her team's accomplishments and their innovative strategies that highlighted not only readiness for competition, but the promise of uniqueness that could redefine their space. When it was time to conclude, Paul's assessment became clear. Aisha, your vision and the strength of your team really shine through. I must say, I was skeptical during this meeting at first, but I see potential in what you're proposing. Her heart lightened with the warmth of accomplishment. Aisha turned to her team and saw pride reflected in their faces. They had emerged victorious before they even stepped out of the room. Aisha had proven her worth, not merely through a proposal but through lived experience, collaboration, and unwavering belief. As she left, the burgeoning storm outside had dissipated, leaving a sense of clarity and forward momentum. The fusion of vulnerability and strength had dawned a new realization for her. She had evolved into a leader who could innovate amidst uncertainty, embodying ambition while fostering collective support. Reflecting on the whirlwind of the day, Aisha acknowledged the true victory didn't solely lie in a favorable outcome before Paul. It resided in the synergy created within her team, in the authentic voice she found amidst adversity. She could take the lead not only for herself, but for every individual who looked to her. It was a renewed day, one that shifted her trajectory, solidifying her confidence that the upcoming launch could define their success. Aisha finally felt complete, embraced by her past and prepared for her future in a way she hadn't before. She stepped forward, embracing what lay ahead with her head held high. In a world that often undermined her, she had conquered the challenges laid before her with a voice of conviction. She was no longer a lone warrior, but a formidable leader alongside a team that reflected the very essence of ambition, adaptability, and an unyielding commitment to overcoming obstacles together. Now, as the light faded into night, she prepared for the next steps. This was just the beginning of an ever-unfolding journey of innovation, unity, and personal achievement that she was destined to lead. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.